Hi, I'm Meg.
And I'm David.
Welcome to The Average Vegans, a podcast to help you live an attainable vegan lifestyle. We're not the ripped influencer vegans you hear about in other podcasts. We're just some ordinary people living in the South, eating plants and loving animals.
Today, or tonight, or this morning, or whenever you listen to this, we're talking about telling your friends and family you've gone vegan, or as I like to
Ooh.
say, you're coming out of the pantry.
I love that so much.
Is it so fun? Isn't it true?
Be a very tricky situation, that's for sure.
Yeah, and it's experience that both of us have had to go through in different ways. Because I had to cut, I had to like go to my parents and be like, hey, by the way,
Right. And I had to
and
talk to my husband and children, so very different experiences.
very very different.
But we've all had to tell friends too, so I think this will be relatable
Yeah,
to everyone.
absolutely. I think that when you make that announcement, I always like where you do it, how you do it, the time frame you do it. I think is probably your first decision. Like exactly who you're going to do it with, do it to, and thing like that.
Yeah, the timing is very important. So probably not during a holiday, I would think. You probably don't want to talk about it going vegan when you're, dealing with Thanksgiving. Granted, you can't determine when you make this decision, but if you can determine when you talk about it, perhaps not during holidays.
Especially when you say not during holidays, especially not at the holiday. You don't want to
Right.
not rolling into a Thanksgiving celebration.
Is that what? Yeah, that's what we'll
We'll
go
go with
with.
that. Everybody, we'll go with that.
It's a celebration.
It's a celebration of thanks. Well, that's a whole other conversation that we can get into of what it really is. But anyway, let's keep it light, keep it fun. Uh, if you're going to your family Christmas dinner, don't be like, "Hi, this is awesome. By the way, I can't eat any of this." You definitely. If you're rolling into the holiday seasons, whether that's a secular or religious holiday or anything like that, you want to make sure you're giving your family a heads up, especially if somebody kind of makes a favorite dish or like their go-to for you. You want to make sure they're aware of it, and if they have these go-to dishes, like my mom makes candied yams and stuff every Thanksgiving, things like that. Was like, well, here's how you can alter that
Right.
to make it better, make it where I can have some too, or gives that person the tips. Like if your grandma makes creamed corn every for Christmas every year or whatever, and or for Easter or whatever, and it makes it, especially for you, like the little spices you like in it. You might want to let her know, hey, I've transitioned to a plant based lifestyle. I know you
Right.
put these ingredients in it. Here's some other options to make that adjustment.
Yeah, especially if you can't wait, if you need to tell them before that Thanksgiving holiday, maybe you have that conversation about how it changes that family gathering a little bit. And that kind of leads to they're going to ask what made you go vegan. What drove you to this decision? What made you change your entire life to kind of fit this lifestyle? That's going to be the first question, I would think. And I always like to kind of talk about the health benefits first, because when you talk to someone who is not a vegan, if you start talking about protecting animals, they're going to possibly could quickly shut down and not want to have that conversation. So if I talk about, I feel more awake when I wake, in the morning when I wake up, I feel less lethargic throughout the day now that I eat this way. Those kind of things people can relate to a little bit more at first than
Right.
when you just spit out, I do it for animals. they
Right.
may they may shut down immediately.
Right. Especially like my mom grew up on a farm.
Oh yeah.
So she has the like they're here for us to eat kind of mentality of it. I mean,
Right, right.
I love it because she'll share like on Facebook, like look at this cute cow jumping on a field in a field. I'm like,
No.
mom, that video is from our farm sanctuary. That cow was like rescued from a dairy farm. It's doing these
Wow.
jumping and playing because it's super happy. It's not attached to a machine anymore. Don't say that. I don't say that because I know better than with her because it'll just turn into us back and forth that neither one of us to have enough time to deal with. And
Right.
she knows my standpoints and what I can say.
And I think
Um,
she understands the health part of it
She
obviously
does.
more. Yeah, she
She
relates
does.
at least a little bit more to that than to the protecting of animals, which is funny because she still shares those videos. I love that.
Right, and that's the thing with me. Like me, it also was important with. That's why I talked to my mom about it first because she's the one who fed me growing up. She cooked all the dinners and stuff,
Right.
and she does a lot of the cooking for holidays and things like that. I talked to her first because she's a little more forgiving. I'm gonna say the words. Not my father is just ruthless, but he's a little more. I'll say he's a little more. He can be a bit more abrasive.
There you go.
And my mom's attitude was, as long as you're healthy and you're happy and you're getting all your vitamins and minerals and proteins and stuff you need, that's fine. That whatever. She was like fine with it. Actually,
Exactly.
and she actually tells people before I do.
Oh, interesting.
Like I've gone to like family birthday parties, and like where there's like all these like food items and there's cake and ice cream, and I'm just like
Right.
eating like the carrots and some salsa and whatever, and I haven't said a word. Like no one knows why I'm not like throwing down on like the cake and stuff. And she's like, "Oh, LD's vegan. He won't." My buddy, my nickname in my family's LD. Since I'm a junior,
How cute.
it just slips out. I'm a
Little
junior,
David.
little David. My dad's Big David. I'm little David. That's probably the most southern thing,
It is so
other than my
adorable.
obvious accent. I'm sure people will hear. It's like, "Hey, Big David, he's little David." But,
I
but
am calling you that.
that's perfectly fine. Yeah, so it's like, oh, LD is, he's vegan. She'll go on and on. I'm like, okay, now
I
I got,
love
and
that.
then I have questions because that's also how some family and friends find out that I went to freaking 8 years ago.
Right.
While and recording this, that's how they find out, and I get kind of like the typical questions, which we'll get into a little bit. And we'll have coming up on an episode of the questions you may encounter.
You
Um,
always encounter.
you always encounter. Uh, but I think into your point is having having the why. They're ready to go
Yes.
because like, well, why? What's going on? And as we talked in our first episode, my why was science. Looked into the science
Right.
of it and how that affects us physically. And my mom like, well, why? And she asked me why. Like, why would I do this? And I was like, well, heart disease runs in our family. So does
Right.
obesity.
Those
Uh,
are really good examples too.
Alzheimer's, all that stuff runs in our family, and plant-based animal products is the leading causes of all of these issues. And it didn't make sense for me from a health standpoint because if you eat something that, in the long run, kills you, makes you sick, that's a poison.
Right.
If you're sick and you go to the doctor doesn't say go eat more, like drink more milk and eat more chicken. They don't say that. They go like, oh, you should eat some spinach and maybe some beans and whatever,
Exactly.
and for instance, fermented. They tell you all these vegetables and fruits you should be eating and or drinking to heal yourself.
Right.
And so it was it Hippocrates said, or I think it was Hippocrates said, let food be thy medicine, and let medicine be thy food.
Right.
It's in the same vein. So if medicine is food and food is medicine, then in this case, fruits and vegetables, that's what heals you. Then why isn't that the only thing you should be eating?
Right.
So that's kind of
And
where my
those are
logic landed.
and that's a solid concept to say to someone when you're talking about it, when you're talking about the health benefits. So when I told my husband I was going to try a vegan diet for a while, he asked why, just like everyone does. And I said, I have been eating, quote, clean as they call it, for years. I have deprived myself of donuts for years, and I've seen no benefit in my body. So I was like, why not try eating healthy vegan food for a month and see how that goes? How do I feel afterwards? And I was like, I just want to see if I feel more awake, if I feel more like I can concentrate better. And I quickly realized I could. And so I made sure he knew that. I made sure that he knew those were my reasons. Those specific health goals were my reasons for eating this way. And once he understood that there was a purpose and it wasn't just because I wanted to try some little fad or something different, he could relate to it. He could respect it a little bit more. And I think that that's important when you're talking to someone about going vegan.
Yeah.
And that leads to is there a person? Is there a movie? Is there something that sparked this besides, obviously I wanted to be healthier, but is there a celebrity or a coworker or a friend of yours that happens to be vegan that influenced you? Like David influenced me to go
Yeah.
vegan. And so if I know someone that respects David and I say, well, he is vegan and he got me to go vegan, well, then that kind of helps them understand my point of view.
Right.
So,
Unfortunately, the people who respect me are few and far between. But
oh,
there's probably a couple
shush
there.
it.
Yeah, I think especially if it's a video or a post or anything that really kind of triggered that decision to if you had that readily available, like the name of the video, the movie, where it can be found. Like, oh, I saw I saw Meet Your Meat on YouTube, and I can
Right.
send you the video if you want to see what I'm talking about, where this is coming from. But if you have those sources that kind of made you go in that direction readily available to kind of share, so you can kind of see where you're coming from, especially if you're talking with a family member or friend who is more open minded and willing to kind of at least understand. That's what I would suggest. With my mom, there was she never watched them, but there was a few things that I had watched. It was like Vegucated. Oh my God, there was a
Cowspiracy I shared
Cowspiracy.
with yeah, I shared that with my husband and
That's
he
another one.
really that really helped a lot.
Yeah. If you have those available, readily available, those titles where you can find them, like I'll share them with you if you want to check it out. And it can help them understand a little better and be a little more kind of quote on your side.
Right.
Um, but or it may actually open their eyes a little bit. Maybe they'll jump on that little journey with you, and you can kind of ride that train together. Ride that train.
You always, no matter what led to this decision, you have to show some excitement, be excited about this new change in your life. Be prepared about like how are you going to handle this? It is a big change. It does alter a lot of your day-to-day practices. So how are you going to handle that? Because they're going to ask you that. They're
Right.
going to ask, do I have to cook? If you're telling someone you live with that you're going vegan and they're not, like, are they going to suddenly, are you requiring them to
Well,
make only vegan food, which is crazy.
having that excitement and that energy and that the knowledge kind of not, and I don't really use knowledge like you have to have like a dissertation ready to go and like you're gonna give a whole speech, but having the excitement and kind of knowing your shit a little bit.
Yeah, basic knowledge.
Right, basic knowledge, but having that like kind of obvious in the forefront, I think it lets the person you're talking to know that you're confident and you're secure in the decision, and they're less likely to kind of badger you on it and really hammer home like, okay, you're excited, you're happy, especially if they love you and their family and a friend member who loves you, like you're excited about
Right.
it. You obviously why you're doing this, what's led to it, what you have to do. Go for it. That's really fine.
And knowing what you have to do, I think is important because, like you said, you don't need to have a dissertation about it, but you do need to know what you need to eat in order to get those nutrients and vitamins. Because the second you tell someone you're vegan, they're going to become a health nutrition expert
Yes.
and ask you all about all kinds of vitamins they don't actually care about in their day-to-day life. So you need to be able to answer how you're going to get those vitamins and nutrients because they're going to ask immediately.
Well, it's like my mom, like I was telling you before we started recording. I think we were talking about before we started recording this. My mom asked me like, well, where do you get your, as long as you're happy and healthy and you get all, your vitamins and minerals and nutrients and proteins and whatever, and I was like, oh, and I knew, I'm like, yeah, well, I mean, for proteins, there's tofu, tempeh, there's beans, nuts, seeds. There's proteins in potato. And there's one grain of protein, but it's in potatoes.
It's there.
There's iron, dark leafy greens, vitamin C, bell peppers. Like I kind of knew a lot of this stuff going in.
Right.
Not that you have to have this level of knowledge, but like I could really shoot out the gate with it, which gave me confidence to be able to answer these questions, and also kind of gave my mom again, who would kind of be the gatekeeper, and kind of like almost. Mom's kind of like she's like my bouncer in this whole thing, because when
Oh, I
somebody starts
love
sounding
that.
like, oh, you're vegan, her mom's like, you can back off because I'll kick your butt before he does.
Right.
But yeah, so
And she sees that you know what you're doing.
Right.
So she has that confidence in you. So when someone else kind of criticizes you, she can be like, well, he knows what
yeah, and that's
he's
what
got
happened.
it.
Somebody
He's
somebody
fine.
has, somebody asked me a question years ago about something. She was like, he knows what he's doing. Obviously, you can look
I
at him. He
love
knows
that.
he's perfectly fine.
Right.
So again, knowing where you're going to knowing where you're going to get the vitamins and minerals and nutrients from, Speaking of that, I want to. This is like surprise little information. But
Oh,
what
jeez.
what frustrates me about that question, we have to I had to bring it up because it just popped in my head and it's driving me nuts. You don't get much from animal products to begin with.
Good
Okay, so
point.
let's back up a second, right? You're not going to get vitamin C, your vitamin E, your all these, your vitamin K, your vitamin B12. Well, B12, yeah, but you get B12 from meat because they're supplemented with it. That's a whole other episode. Stay tuned. Uh, stay tuned for the
Good
episode
segue.
about B12. But you don't really get that much from animal products. Even calcium isn't really bound
Right.
that well. There was a misnomer that the dairy actually leaks calcium from your bones. That's not necessarily true. It's more like it doesn't. It really just doesn't absorb as well as it does from a plant source. So what I find funny is, quotes funny, is when someone's like, "Where are you going to get your nutrition from?" It's like the same place you do. Just
Right.
really all you're mostly doing. Understand, as when you go to a vegan diet, all you're mostly doing is replacing your protein source. It's kind of it.
Perfect.
It's basically, and you have to supplement with B12. Just to touch on it briefly, vegans, you have to take some sort of B12, either a supplement or through food, whether it be fermented or I do nutritional yeast a lot of things to
Me
get
too,
my
yeah.
B12. That's not because you can only get it from animals. No animal makes B12. I think there's like a handful of like really weird, like in the Amazon jungle, a turtle or something does whatever. But no mammal at least, and bird and fish.
Right.
We don't make our own B12. B12 comes from a microbe in the dirt. Most animals, cows, chickens, pigs, everything, would get it from eating grass and things that are on the ground, and that microbes in the dirt make B12. We get in their system.
Right.
Humans,
Exactly.
before we started living in houses and and eating things from sanitary, highly cleaned areas and washing our fruits and stuff, we got it from river water, well water, and eating dirty plants. That's pretty much where our B12 came from. But because of the animal agriculture, they eat oats and things like that are very kind of washed and cleaned because they don't want them to get sick
Right.
from some sort of bacterial infection because that would hit their bottom line. They actually supplement their diets with B12 that make it to you. So as a vegan, by taking your own B12 through a food supplement like fermented foods, sauerkrauts, things like that, or through just like a B12 supplement. Dude, B12 supplement, Meg doesn't like sauerkraut. I'm not a huge fan either.
No.
Um,
So gross.
all you're doing is skipping the middleman. You're skipping either supplement goes from
Right.
the farmer to the cow to you, or it goes from you to just to you, the supplement to you. That's it. You're skipping the
Right.
middleman. So, and what's interesting is that most people are B12 deficient to some level anyway. Even meat eaters are B12 deficient. It's a
And knowing that is going to be powerful
absolutely. That's
when
what I'm
you're
saying.
talking to people.
Right, knowing these little bits of information, like it might be my whole rant may have been too heavy, but knowing these pieces of information of like, well,
Right.
what about like maybe someone was like, well, B12, because maybe they saw a YouTube video or whatever, like B12, you can't get B12. Well, actually, you get supplemented too, but you get supplemented from the meat you're eating. I'm just taking the supplement directly. And
Exactly.
knowing those little things can actually shut someone down who's ready to
Very
value you,
quickly.
because like, oh, okay, well, obviously something like that minute. I'm gonna back off. I've had people just like stop talking about it. Like I said, at this
Yeah.
point, 8 years in, I literally just go, dude, I've been doing this for 8 years. I can answer every question you have. Do you really want to go down this road? And nine times there's somebody who's like, yeah, but nine times out of 10, they're like, no. I'm like, yeah.
No, it's not worth it.
It's going to be tiring for you, and I'm going to win because I know all of these like answers. I've been doing this for so long.
Right.
So
And
all
at
that
the
rant,
beginning, you don't need to know all the answers, but
absolutely
you
not.
need to know enough to show that you're educated in this decision. And it's not just some on a whim phase you're
Right,
going through. You don't want it to be treated that way. This is,
right.
definitely not a phase. This is a lifetime
Yeah.
decision.
And for the most part, the question you're going to get is like, well, where are you going to get your nutrition from? Are you going to be okay? Are you going to be healthy? And say, yeah, all I'm really doing is replace my protein source. All of my nutrition comes from plants anyway. I'm replacing my chicken and my pork and my beef and steaks and stuff with, tofu and tempeh and beans and, seitan and stuff like that. As
And
long
you
as, as
can
long as you
kind of
know
go
that, they'll kind of
into
back off a little bit.
recipes and simple meals that you plan to make or that you have made already
Right.
that include those protein sources. So letting them know that, you're not eating some crazy weird thing. It's just some plants. It's not, it's things that they have most likely had in their life. Maybe not the tofu, but just the whole plants and things like that. So it's not some foreign food. And if you can bring them something to eat, that's kind of my go-to tip for every episode. You'll probably hear me say this a lot. Bring them food. Bring them something they can try, because if it's something you know they love, so say the person you're talking to loves cookies, give them cookies and then let them eat them and then start talking about this subject after they've already said they like them.
Right. And I don't do
And
like,
it'll may change
like,
things.
and they're vegan too. Boom. And I'll be like, oh, they're like, really? What are you going to get? Like, it means you can't eat a lot of stuff, right? Like, no, cookies, like the cookies I brought, they're vegan and you're eating them fine.
Right,
And they'll be like,
exactly.
oh shit. I'm like, yeah,
Little
delicious,
trick.
right? Yeah.
It's my favorite trick.
I had a friend who had like a little dinner party and didn't tell anyone. Like they made like little burger sliders, all kinds of like cakes and cookies and like mac and cheese, and everyone's like loading the plates and having a good time. And in the middle of it, they walk over and start scooping the same stuff. They're like, "Dude, aren't you vegan?" They're like, "Yeah, all this is." And everyone's like, "Boom, explosion."
See, you can totally eliminate a lot of those questions if you just feed them good food. It just distracts them enough that they aren't so riled up.
Right. And I think kind of harkening back to the holiday piece, you're going to get, especially if you have family members who you're talking to about this or friends who you visit in the holidays, they're going to ask you about, like we know we eat, like if you have a religious holiday like Christmas or, Yom Kippur, or I'm not really good on all the holidays for all the religions, but if you have a holiday where food is an integral part of that, Thanksgiving, Christmas have a lot of things, especially, like, you have the Christmas hams and the mashed potatoes and all this stuff, right? And as Meg makes it do the face. But if you have a religious holiday or even a secular holiday that is very centered around types of foods, be prepared to explain how those can be altered or whether other versions exist. Or even if like, don't worry, I'll handle that. I'll bring my own. Like Thanksgiving,
yes.
I tell my mom, okay, my mom is really good. She's highly supportive in this. She's like, she'll make a vegan version of her green beans and then a non-vegan one for my dad, who is not.
I gotta meet mom.
My mom's awesome, but like, who's like, my dad thinks I am. I think he thinks it's a mental disorder. I don't know what my dad thinks, but he just kind of. My dad was like, "Son, I love you, but I'm not going to my grave smell like tofu and bean sprouts." I go, that's a good point. So does that scar on your chest from your heart surgery? Does it ever itch? Because I'm almost 40, I'm on no medication, so
exactly. I am 41, and I'm on no medications
right?
either.
I even went to the dentist. They asked me if I was on blood pressure because they're doing the check, like, you on blood pressure medication. I said no, and this is a couple years ago, and they asked me again, like, it's important we know if you're on blood. I'm like, no, I've never taken. No, I don't take any medication. But having those like foods available, like my mom don't make anything, I'll bring my own stuff. Sometimes I make it. I'm gonna go to like the Whole Foods or or Seven Under, which is a really like cool little like quiche store in Atlanta. That I'll grab stuff from to make it easier for myself.
I've never been there.
It's really, really good. We
need to go on a field trip.
Yeah, when
the world's not dying.
Yeah, when everything's not on fire, metaphorically and physically, to some places. We'll have to do that, but it's really, really good
for sure.
But I always bring stuff but she did ask about holiday stuff like Thanksgiving and Christmas and stuff, and I had things if I can bring this and this. So if you're again, just to kind of reiterate that, because I have a habit of like kind of derailing my own points, as I'm sure all of you have recognized by now. If you have foods that are very specific to your holiday or family traditions, understand that a concerned family member who is involved in those preparations may ask what they can do or what you're going to do about those sorts of things, and have an answer ready to go.
And in an upcoming episode, we'll help you with that. Yes. We are going to talk all about handling holidays being vegan, including Halloween, which is coming up. We're all very excited for a weird 2020 Halloween.
I don't know how I'm going to do it, man.
I don't know how am I going to hand out candy?
What am I going to do this year? Same thing I did last year? Sit at home and watch Hocus Pocus?
I mean,
and eat a bag of candy. Eat a whole bag of candy because no one ever comes to my house.
We get a lot of kids here, and I don't know how I'm going to handle it this year because I can't just leave candy out. There's a lot of teenagers still take the whole bag, so I can't do that.
I don't know.
So I don't know. We'll have to see. But in our next episode, we're going to talk about holidays, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and how you handle that as a vegan. So we'll have those answers for you.
I don't know how you do it. Yeah. I don't live in a neighborhood. I live like on a street, so like no one really comes by.
I live in a big old
Well, I'm
neighborhood.
like, oh no one came. I have a whole bag of candy. What am I gonna do? Everyone will find out next episode that there is a fat kid inside me forever. I was husky. Like back in the day when you could have a husky clothes section in the stores. My mom was like, I'm gonna get you some pants. I'm like, she's going to the husky section.
Oh no.
She's going
Well,
so that fat kid is in me and that fat kid loves candy. Oh my god.
yes, we are going to
That'd be
talk
candy.
about candy, eat
Oh
candy,
my
have a
god.
wonderful time. I'm
Can we go to
excited.
episode 3 now? Because I don't have.
No. All right, we do have some simple little tips that we wanted to kind of go over as we talk about this subject, letting people know you're going vegan. So don't point fingers and call out what they eat, because that is one surefire way to piss someone off.
Right.
And it's very easy when they start to get feisty with you about the way you're eating, is to very quickly point out the way they eat and why it's wrong. But don't do that. Fight that urge, because
Right.
you're just going down to their level, and it's not going to help your case in any way. It's just going to make it worse, and it's going to turn the whole thing into a fight. It's very difficult not to point those fingers, though. And you don't have to tell them they need to go vegan. Not everyone needs to follow your path. When I chose this lifestyle, I told my family, my children, my husband, they did not have to follow me. This was my choice. It's not going to impose on their lives. It's not going to change anything about their day-to-day life. That way it doesn't feel like it's like imposing on their way of existing. It's just me. It's just what I eat. It's not that big of a deal.
Well, on those two tips, I think it kind of goes along with, I say, like the first stage of like veganism is just everyone starts. It feels like everyone starts out as like the angry vegan of like,
Right.
because it's like your eyes get like, it's almost like your eyes are opened and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, okay, so we're all just eating dead things that were tortured for who knows how long, depending on when that thing gets killed. It was tortured
Right.
for its entire life, then just brutally murdered. You're just like throwing it on some bread with some mustard and having a good time, and it's gonna piss you off. Like the whole thing is,
Yes.
you're gonna be like, you murdering son of a bitch. It's just gonna
Yes.
you're gonna have anger, and it's gonna be there. And it's so easy to go, it's so easy to start pointing fingers and want to
Yes.
slap the fork in everyone's hands. Like, why can't you eat spinach? Why can't you eat some tofu that has some barbecue sauce on it, been grilled? It's delicious. And that's my lunch, like almost every Friday, is a barbecue tofu sandwich. Love it. But you're gonna have that angry phase early on, and those 2 points really hit on the angry phase of you wanting to get someone's face.
Yes.
And if you do that, they're going, especially if you're in a gathering with friends and family who are just kind of coming to terms with this lifestyle adjustment you're going through. It's basically gonna make them more defensive and also offensive, kind of like you're gonna come after me, well, I'm gonna go after you.
Right.
I'm not.
Right.
I especially if those family members aren't going after you. If they're like,
Yeah,
all right,
don't
that's
start.
fine. Right. If they're like, oh, you know what, you eat you. You eat yourself. Is that cannibalism, or is that self?
Oh, I don't.
Anyway, if you're vegan, you eat yourself. Are you still vegan? Anyway, so the
Oh,
many mysteries of
man.
vegan. But if they're kind of letting you be and letting you do your own thing, and you're attacking them, it's going to turn them on you. It's going to make the situation so much more difficult, and they're also less likely to be interested,
Right.
and be understanding, and maybe even follow in your footsteps.
It's more like you need to live by example, like be just your happy little vegan self. If they happen to notice and want to ask some questions, great, but you don't need to point out what they're doing is wrong. I think that's definitely our first and most important tip. Just try to keep your fingers to yourself.
Right. Now, if you get asked questions, answer the questions.
Yes.
Not if it's aggressive, like, like, what is that? Like, no, okay, dude, it's just this. But they're like, so, why are you eating that instead of this? Or like, okay, so I'm eating turkey, but you're eating, like, what is that? Okay, well, this is like a little seitan thing. It's got veggies and rice and stuff. It's a little stuffed thing. Okay, well, was it, and if they ask sincere questions, trying to understand what's going on or why you chose one or the other, that's fine. Answer those questions.
Right.
But don't instigate a back and forth, because it's going to make them defensive and in turn offensive.
Exactly. And when you answer those questions, if you have sources, research of some sort from sources that they will trust, that they will deem reputable, that would also help your case in a way, um, if it's from, some random weird little blog that they've never heard of, they may not trust your reasoning. But if you have a source that they find reputable, that is something you should definitely have ready to throw at them.
Right. And people follow, there's some people follow on Instagram. They're like bodybuilders who are like above average. You can say, okay, look at these guys. There's
Exactly.
the vegan. He used to go by Vegan Dread. I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but he was actually he was raised vegetarian. He went vegan like 20 years ago, and it's just insane how massive he is. But he's never had meat his entire life. So
Right. And that's mind blowing to people. When
right,
you show them a bodybuilder that's never had meat,
right,
and that I can think of several right now,
right,
that is pretty shocking to people. So having that kind of in your back pocket little tip, look at this, look at
right.
guy, I think that would show a lot to people. It's so shocking. I showed my husband some of those vegan bodybuilders that have never had meat, and he was blown away
Yeah. We have
because we see those people wanting more protein and all the protein in the world. So it just showing them that you can be vegan and still be healthy and athletic. It's a big point. Granted, most of the people asking you these questions probably aren't super athletic themselves, but you never know. You could. Um, if you know anyone in your family or friends that is vegan, that they would be able to relate to. So I told my husband's family that I was going vegan, and I thought for sure they were going to give me all the shit they possibly could. And then I found out that my sister-in-law's, no, it's my brother-in-law's cousin is like a well-known like vegan influencer, and he's a bodybuilder and everything. And so sometimes I know you have to be
you never
prepared
told me
for the
this.
opposite
Okay, I'm
reaction.
learning something new like you guys are. I don't know this
I
information.
know.
I've known you for
I
like
know.
7 years, and you've never told me this. All right, I'm offended.
I know. I'll have to. I don't even know if I have his name written down anywhere because I was just so shocked when they came back to me with that information. But you do kind of have to be prepared for. You may think that someone's ready to fight, but when you tell them you went vegan, they may not even have that reaction, and it could be the greatest little conversation where they, encourage you. So two of my best girlfriends are not vegan, but they are the most vegan friendly people I've
Yep.
ever met in my life. Like we only go to restaurants that have plant based food. They know that there's not even an option. When I used to have get togethers at my house,
Oh, I
before
know.
the
Trust me.
world went gross,
Yeah.
people would bring vegan food, not because they thought they had to, but because they wanted to. And you have to be ready for, you may be surprised in a good way, which
Oh yeah.
I hope you are. Gosh, I hope some of you have those good reactions and not all bad reactions, but
Well, I
the
think
good reactions make it so much
I
better
think
than
if you kind of follow those, the kind of guidelines and tips that we've given, don't make it a bombshell, don't do it like at a family event where food is already prepared. Be confident, have information ready. Try to kind of like open the subject up to at least to one or two family members who are open, understanding, and kind of like won't really kind of attack you on it. May have questions, but will accept that decision. If you really follow some of those guidelines, I think that would really helps it kind of soften the blow when telling other family members who might be a little less forgiving.
right. And being prepared for either kind of reaction. It could go good, it could go bad. You never know. And my favorite tip, always bring some kind of dessert or a snack or something because everyone's nicer when they got a little bit of sugar in them. I
Look,
mean,
here's the thing, everybody out there in the listening world. I'm from Georgia. Meg's from Florida. We're from the South. So the rule in the South is like if you gotta bring some information, good or bad, bring some
you
treats.
bring a dish.
Bring a casserole, bring some cookies, bring a cake, cupcakes,
Yep.
brownies, and then like
Softens the blow.
everyone's like, this is delicious. Why'd you bring cake all of a sudden? Well, I'm a vegan actually, and this is actually a vegan cake. It's delicious, right? Awesome. Do you have any questions?
We're
No,
so
because
Southern.
your mouth is full with cake. That's fantastic.
And I don't even consider myself Southern. It's people from South Florida. We're not super Southern,
Yeah,
but I guess I maybe have lived here too long. I've lived here 15
I
years. You
mean,
guys are
to
rubbing
be
off on
fair,
me.
Florida is not really considered part of the South. You're your own kind of weird bath salt gator
Listen.
weird. Like when you cross the Georgia Florida line, it's just kind of like it's like you kind of go ugh, like as you
Oh no. I'm gonna beat you up.
bring it on. Okay, it's an hour drive. Come on.
Yeah, I don't feel or don't consider myself Southern, but I definitely have had a little bit of that rubbed off on me since I'm always like, bring food, always bring food. I don't know what it is. Oh,
It's
but
a
we
good rule
do
of thumb.
hope that these tips help you when you kind of drop the bomb that you've gone to a plant-based diet. Um, Let us know what your experience is if you are already vegan and you've had these conversations. Email us or message us or comment on Instagram and let us know what your experience was like. Were they open to the conversation? Were they not open and wanted to argue about it? We'd love to hear.
Speaking
And
of,
if
where
you
can they
have any
find us,
tips,
listen to us, and hear us?
you're so adorable.
I really am. My totes I am.
All right. Well, you can make sure to leave us a review on iTunes and anywhere you listen to your podcasts. Recommend us to your family, friends, coworkers, strangers, everyone. And make sure to follow us on Instagram at The Average Vegans and email us at theaveragevegans@gmail.com. And again, we want to hear about your vegan story, or if you have any tips on how to let people know that you're going vegan that we haven't shared. You know, we're not everything. Maybe you have some extra tip that we haven't come up with.
Right.
And we, like always, we want to hear your vegan story, your favorite vegan treats, your episode suggestions, and any questions you might have.
And of course,
So fill up our email.
show notes and contact forms and how to find out more about us is at theaveragevegans.com.
And we will have a new episode every Wednesday, so you can get ready for that. And we're going to talk about the holidays next. Everyone get excited.
I was candy. We're eating candy.
I
I'm
know.
already
I
excited.
was just going to say.
I'm actually like shaking a little bit because there's so much candy. I'm so excited. All right. Well, everyone, thanks everyone for listening, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Yeah, see you next week.